Right, in this video I'm going to talk about the FIRE movement versus buy, borrow, die, and why I believe the buy, borrow, die is far superior. So, the FIRE movement, financial independence, retire early. What do they believe? They believe in retiring at 45 or 45, 50, as young as is physically possible. In order to do that, they work as hard as possible and invest as much as possible into tax wrappers like stocks and shares ISA, Roth IRA, 401k, pensions in the UK, SIP. Fire it into all that and, live as frugal as they can. So rice and beans, everything's budgeted and accounted for, very tight budget, and don't really enjoy their money until they retire. And even that's debatable if they even enjoy it after they retire, because what you find is they've built such a mindset of scarcity that they probably can't even enjoy it once they actually do come to retirement. So it is an asset liquidation based retirement plan. So the goal is, once they've invested a big pot that they've worked sort of all their life for, they then sort of sell like 4% per year and use that money to live the rest of their life on it. So that's the general plan. These are the first people that will show you the compound growth calculator. They'll say, look, if you invest this amount of much money into the S&P 500, you'll have this much money in 40 years, 30 years, whatever it may be. So they're the first ones to preach about compound growth. They're the first ones to preach about investing. And their entire plan at the end is to liquidate all of it, really, up between then and the end of their life. So what's the problem with that? The problem is they're destroying compound growth, whereas buy, borrow, die never sell, so they never interrupt the compound growth, and they leave an inheritance to their children. Whereas the FIRE movement, whatever scraps are left, the next generation will get, and the next generation will repeat the same process likely, because they've grown up in a scarcity mindset family. They're control freaks. Life is a spreadsheet. Everything is optimized. The biggest thing I notice about the FIRE movement people is they view life as like a problem to be solved and not a journey. See, life is a journey to be lived. It's not just like to be figured out. And these people are control freaks. The mindset and the psychology towards these people is they're very clean cut and organised, and they appear like they've got everything together. They've got their life together and everything's working out the way they want it to work. And life just isn't like that. Okay, if you've lived long enough, you'll realise that life is full of surprises, and it's about adapting to situations and adapting to circumstances, and life is to be enjoyed as well. Okay, you're not just here to live on rice and beans and make that your personality trait. Okay, because what I do find is even when they retire, they just recreate the jobs they wanted to escape. They end up tracking every penny, running a tight schedule, and not even enjoying the money anyway. I've seen this because, there's people that phone up the Dave Ramsey show and say, I've got all this money, but I can't spend it. Because they've trained their brain that, money is finite and scarce, and they have to protect themselves. And it's just a horrible way to live, and it's just a miserable way to be. I mean, nobody likes people that are frugal and cheap. It's just not a nice trait to have, and making it your whole personality and having this sort of moral superiority to other people. See, the FIRE movement, they come across as like, a little bit sort of pretentious, and they've got it all figured out when they don't have it all figured out, because the maths prove otherwise. There's a better system than it, which is the buy, borrow, die system. A stocks and shares ISA, okay, it's tax-free for you. It's fully tax-free for your life, but it will still get inheritance tax on the next generation. So that's something to consider, and you have to liquidate the assets to even get use of that money. I see so many of these FIRE movement people, they post their portfolios online of their stocks and shares ISA, and I think that's great, but you can't spend that money. You just have to look at it. But what often happens is, because these people don't have a framework, they don't track liquidity, they don't have a system, often what they might end up doing is if there is going to be a situation where they'll sell it, they'll sell it when the market's crashing. I can guarantee you that's the time they'll show the portfolio during a bull market, and then when it's coming towards crashing, they begin to sell it, because people genuinely overestimate their risk tolerance when they invest in the stock market. People think they have a high tolerance to risk, and then the news starts scaring them, the market starts dipping, and they realise that they overestimated their risk in the first place. A 401k and a pension, great tax benefits, but it has a fragile finish line. You're going to pay taxes on the other side when they begin to draw it. You have to sort of drip feed the pension slowly but surely. Okay, so that's another factor. So yeah, it's tax-free on one end, not tax-free on the other end. Here's my biggest question I have for the FIRE movement. What do you do if you retire in a bear market? Your whole plan's just nuked. Okay, imagine they retired in like 2022 during liquidity contraction. The Fed hikes rates. What happens if you were 45 then, you wanted to retire? You can't retire. Do they just delay the retirement? What happens then? See, these are the sequence of returns that doesn't get factored in either. And this is because they don't have a framework. The framework is, be as frugal as possible and invest everything. And they moralise frugality. They believe that it's virtuous. There's nothing virtuous about being frugal. Okay, as long as you spend less than you make and you are investing, your assets go up every month and your liabilities go down. That's good. Taking it to the extreme just leads to burnout. These people end up burning themselves out. They're working 60 hours a week. And you're human beings at the end of the day. No human can just work 60 to 80 hours continuously, day in and day out, and not see any reward of that. No vacations, no holiday, no time off, not spending any money. What way is that to live? Okay? And the sad, ironic truth is, someone that just spends and splurges and wastes all their money, if they were to die tomorrow, they turned out to be correct, and the FIRE movement turned out to be wrong. Obviously, God willing, that won't happen. Ironically, they call themselves players, yet they're actually obedient system players. They use all government-approved wrappers. So they think that they're smart and savvy, but see these government-approved wrappers, these are like pocket change for the ultra-wealthy. Ultra-wealthy players don't utilise these. They'll maybe use a stocks and shares ISA to invest in like a moonshot stock, but their actual generational wealth is in a taxable brokerage account where they are borrowing against it. Because you cannot borrow against a stocks and shares ISA. Okay, you can't borrow against it, so you have to just liquidate it. You have to just sell it off. Whereas buy, borrow, die is about never retiring from wealth. So it's constantly accumulating. And if you don't believe me, go down to Canary Wharf and ask the professionals down at Canary Wharf. Ask the professionals at Goldman Sachs, UBS, the pension fund managers and JP Morgan. These are the people that already know about this system and they utilise this system. You go to any private bank and speak to the relationship manager and they will 100% agree with me because the system proves it. People that understand the monetary system understand this and understand that it's a superior system. It's just the facts. The other question I have is, you retire at 45, how do you know you've got enough to last you the next 40, 50 years? You may live another 50 years. The way that healthcare is improving, artificial intelligence is getting introduced, and people are going to potentially live longer. So how are you going to survive another 50 years with what about a Black Swan event? What about increased inflation, unexpected situations, volatility? There's a lot of questions, and these questions, they don't have answers. They do not have answers to this. This is the biggest thing, is they celebrate the compound growth and then interrupt it right when it's at its peak. Remember, 80% of the compound returns, 80% happen in the final 20% of time. So if it's 10 years, the last 2 years has 80% of the growth. So it gets more effective the longer time goes on, the longer the time horizon. So they just when they're seeing the returns, they choose to retire and they liquidate it. They preach freedom, but they live in a self-imposed austerity prison. The whiteboard never lies. So There it is, fire movement versus buy, borrow, die. I am a very big advocate for buy, borrow, die. If you want to learn more about it, follow the channel, subscribe, like, leave a comment, and I'm going to be making more and more videos on this topic.